How's everybody doing tonight? It's great to be with y'all. Thank you for inviting me. My name's Hunter Hill. I'm a candidate for governor. I appreciated Brian's comments suggesting I'm a good man. I appreciate that. But I'm a candidate for governor, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my background and why I want to be your governor and how I would lead as your governor. I grew up here my whole life in Georgia and was here my whole life other than the time I was at West Point and served as an infantry officer in the United States Army. Came home, got into the real estate business, and got married, have 2 children, Hunter and Annie. They're in kindergarten and first grade. And run a small business for the last 4 years, and I've been in the state senate for 5 years. And I can tell each and every one of you that there's so much more we can be doing to move Georgia to its full potential, and also that means advancing the conservative agenda that we all believe in and have been fighting for. But I can tell you that after my service in the Senate, it's not going to happen unless we elect a true conservative leader to be our next governor. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my governing philosophy. You know, how do I come up with the ideas that I have, and how am I going to lead? I can tell you there's 2 things that inform my governing philosophy. The first thing is my faith and belief in the Lord Jesus Christ and my understanding of the foundational constitutional documents that we have, not only the Declaration of Independence, but also the Constitution. And when I think of what our founders went through, it amazes me. And I'll tell you that in my 3rd tour in Afghanistan, I really I was confronted with how the government misuses its resources. I was an airborne ranger. I was trained to close with and destroy the enemy. Yet I was being used in a nation-building capacity to win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. And I know that, you know, as a Christian, you don't change people's lives with a helmet on your head and a gun in your hand. You change someone's life by walking with them over a period of time and affecting life change in them, but by the way that you believe and the way that you live and the way that you treat that person. And I realized the government's not good at that, because I was over in Afghanistan executing national policy, and I realized we have excellent leaders in the military, but we have policymakers that have broken philosophies in the way that they're telling those that are implementing policy how to act. So I got into the state senate, and I realized we have broken philosophies in our state government as well. And what I mean by that is you can spend billions of dollars on something and still not get the effective change that everyone's desiring, no matter how much money you spend, no matter how much time you do it. And that's why our founders believed in a limited government. Things that we should be focusing on in government that only government can do, and let ministries and nonprofits and communities deal with the other issues of especially the brokenness in our society. And so that's why I believe in a limited government platform. That's why I want to focus our spending on things like public safety and education and transportation, and work with communities like the ones y'all sitting in front of me to deal with the broken aspects of our society. And we're going to need a governor to lead on that issue. Other things I want to work on, I want to eliminate the state income tax. I believe that it's a barrier to individuals achieving the most out of their life. And so it's also an economic development issue. I mean, the metropolitan Atlanta continues to do excellently in our state, but there's other aspects of our state that need economic development, and I believe eliminating the income tax will be a boon for our economy, especially in North Georgia and South Georgia, as they're competing for economic development in borders with Florida and Tennessee. Thank you. We got one. 2. No. But then education, you know, this is the pathway for people to have prosperity in their own life. And we're letting down Georgians by not having a solid education system. And truthfully, I don't think that a governor or any politician can come in and tell you they're going to create an outstanding education system, because there's a failed philosophy there. We need to infuse free market principles into education. We need to empower families with the resources that we're otherwise going to spend anyway, and allow them to make the best educational choices for their children. And so I've championed that as a senator. Thank you, and I will continue to do so. I want to also talk about an issue I think that's near and dear to all of our hearts, and that's really our foundational principles. our belief in the protection of innocent life, our belief in the Second Amendment, and of course our belief in the necessity to preserve religious liberty. You know, I find it disheartening, is the best way I can say it, that we often pit one another against each other. Sometimes it's the business community, sometimes it's other aspects of our society. But we need to remind our members in our community, our friends, our family, that religious liberty is what made this country prosperous. I've been in a country without religious liberty. And you better do what I did and take a gun. Because if a country's not going to give you religious liberty, then they're not going to give you any liberty at all. Okay, so we need to make sure that we restore religious liberty to its rightful protection in the Constitution. And I'm going to do that for this state. The other thing we've got to do is we've got to focus on moving the needle for the Second Amendment. You know, I think of I want to correct myself. Not move the needle for the issue, but just make sure that no one undermines that value. I mean, I believe in that Second Amendment is actually a God-given right because it's connected to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's actually the ability to defend oneself. So that's a little bit about my values, but I can tell you that I have seen face-to-face the enemies of our country from a foreign aspect, and I can tell each and every one of you that Islamic terrorism won't bring our country to its knees, and the reason it will not is because we are too strong and they are too weak. But what will undermine this country is us from within. If we elect weak leaders and career politicians who are going to undermine the values and principles that made us great. And so that's what I want to stand in the gap against. And I've shared a little bit about what I'm for. But I would be grateful for each and every one of y'all's support. I'd be grateful for your prayers. And we can do this. We can make Georgia the #1 state in the country by moving the conservative agenda and creating and expanding freedom and liberty by the policies that we implement. But I'm going to need your help, and I'd be grateful for it. Thank you very much for your time.